Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to another episode of Baked in the Cake, and I have been excited for this one because we are talking about UFOs and Star Wars. We have been planning on bringing Kyle back on, for a while to rebut us on our previous Star Wars episode, or our episode of Baked in the Cake about Star Wars, I should say. And there's a lot of things that I thought was baked in the cake about Star Wars, but Kyle disagreed. And but there are some other interesting things in the world I want to talk about first. And that first one is UFOs. And I want to start with a question. And this is for Kyle first. And then I'm going to ask DJ another question. Are you ready, Kyle?
I'm ready.
Do you believe in UFOs and or aliens?
Yes.
Well, and so yes and yes, or yes and no?
Yes and maybe, actually.
Okay. Yes and maybe, and then DJ, same question.
Yes on unidentified flying objects, no on aliens.
No on aliens. All right. I've gone back and forth on this. I want to believe. I think you have to believe in UFOs.
You have to by definition.
Yes, just the definition of an unidentified flying object. I think you can't really.
What is that? I don't know what that is. I haven't tried it.
It's not yet identified yet.
So, well, what's interesting is that the government just now decided to confirm cases of UFOs as if they were hiding it this entire time. Like people didn't believe until the government affirmed it or something. I don't know. I think that's a little weird. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I always wonder, is there some sort of time frame of releasing it so that it's like they have to go, well, now we can't keep it confidential anymore, and so this is what the report was on it or something like that.
I think that people, a lot of the things I see are saying, like thinking about the time frame of that they released it, that while we're distracted, they're going to release that they affirm this. But and they're like, why is no one freaking out that the U.S. government just affirmed these UFO cases? What's the deal? This is huge news. And I'm like, no, I just don't think everyone was shocked to affirm something they thought was already real, especially if they were keeping up with it, that is. Because Joe Rogan has had Jeremy Corbell on, and Bob Lazar, and the other Navy pilot. Jeremy Corbell is a guy that does a lot of documentaries for aliens and things, and he kind of connects Joe Rogan with these guys and has them on. And I just feel like it's really common knowledge now of these sightings. It's not like Area 51 when they affirmed that there is an Area 51 finally. That was like a big deal. I just don't think this is a huge revelation like people expected.
Well, the thing about UFOs, there's a difference between an identified flying object and then believing that it's being piloted or controlled by aliens.
Yeah, well,
it's if it's like a secret project that the Air Force is working on, that's different than believing that there's like a green man Martian behind the steering wheel of the flying saucer.
Did you listen to all of Bob Lazar's JRE podcast?
I'm not sure. There was one with the pilot. That's the one I listened to.
And Bob Lazar, I think it was Unacknowledged, was the Netflix documentary that Jeremy Corbell produced. Did either of y'all see that?
No, I haven't seen that, but
I should have had y'all at least watch that, I guess. I don't know. It's really interesting, though. What did you see, Kyle?
Well, I haven't watched JRE in a while. I'll see clips here and there of a couple minute things.
Yeah.
The UFO thing is, there's so many government secret things that are going on that different governments test at different times. Like the stealth bomber was tested over rural areas in America, right? So that they'd go, what was that crazy thing? Later on, you find out that's what it is. But
when I was living in San Marcos, they had an air show, and they had a flyover of a stealth bomber, and that thing, like when you look at it on the horizon, it looks absolutely like alien. And then I was taking a nap one day, and it flew over, and it scared me to death. Like I jumped out of bed. It was I guess they were doing a low flyover for the air show, and the sound of it was pretty scary. It didn't sound like a regular airplane.
Well,
and I listened to it once on, or maybe it happened twice, because I went to the Rose Bowl twice, and so they always do a flyover there. And the crazy thing is, obviously, it's not silent, but you don't hear it until it's like right over you. You don't hear it until it's like right there, which I think is obviously the whole point of it. And if it's pitch black, then what are you? You're not going to see it. It's going to be spooky. It would be, and if now we know about it, you knew about it, so you're like, okay, like you didn't, even though you were taking a nap, you're like, okay, I kind of knew about what that was. But man, if you didn't know what that was, you'd be like, what in the world is that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think to me, there's a huge difference between random balls of light in the sky, which I think any weird natural phenomenon could cause. I mean, we have rainbows and the northern lights. I think that something could cause the just weird balls of light in the sky. But the videos that were released were not just balls of light in the sky. Like people saw this with their own eyes, and like a tic tac thing. And what's interesting about Bob Lazar is that they kind of seem to affirm his testimony that has been consistent for like 40 years. Have y'all know anything about Bob Lazar? So one of his, what was
videos,
that?
Okay, but the videos that you're talking about, that of the pilot that was just released, those are from like 20 years ago, early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's okay. It's just what people are used to. Like I was in Oregon in 2017 when the eclipse occurred, and it was like 3 or 4 minutes long, and it was like at 11 a.m. And I can only imagine that if it was 18 something, it was in the 1800s, and I'm like working the fields, and all of a sudden, like this, the moon it gets darker and darker in the middle of the day. Like it would be freaky.
Well, I don't understand your point. Are you saying a UFO sighting in the 1800s?
Well, I'm just saying that these phenomena that occur, that like people, if you don't, it seems like lots of times there's a logical explanation behind it that you just don't know, and then maybe decades or generations later, they go, oh, okay, well, that was a stealth bomber that they were testing out. It's like, okay, that was eclipse. Okay, that was this or that,
Yeah.
And like it's just lots of times it seems like there's a reasonable explanation, maybe for a nefarious reason, but.
Well,
They're really mad at me for not having seen Bob Loblaw's law blog.
Did that ruin it for you?
Bob Lazar, he, man, I should have prepared something a little more for this. I expected y'all. I guess I assumed y'all would have seen or at least heard of Bob Lazar because he blew the lid on Area 51. He worked there, and they tried to cover him up. They tried to pretend he never worked there.
Okay, I think I might have heard something on a recent JRE podcast with Poole, the reporter. Did you see?
Yeah, he talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, he talked about him.
And he talked about an element. Like, what was the element? There's this element that he talked about, and that they said didn't exist. And he's like in the 80s saying, guys, there's this element that they use, and it's really delicate, and it can't exist in all circumstances, but it exists, and this is one of the ways that we think that these UFOs are gaining power, because they seem to have an incredible source of power that can bend gravity.
Right. And so I listened to this on, I think it was on my way to work today, actually.
Okay.
Because they were saying that he got kicked out of the projects because his wife was having an affair.
Yeah.
And they were afraid that she might spill secrets, or he might be mad enough to.
Yeah, well, he was showing people this place in Area 51 where he claimed they were test flying these objects, and to me they'd just be lights in the sky, and that's what they were looking at. And then he didn't go public with it or anything. He was just showing like his friends, and then they were wiretapping his phone, and his wife was having an affair, and they fired him and told him about that. And they fired him for that because now they thought he was at risk for his wife he was unstable, you know, and they wanted someone who was was low risk to work there. They were very stable, and they thought that was a little on the edge, and they fired him for it. And then he just kind of blows the lid on the whole thing, and then they try to wipe away his history of ever working there. And it's pretty crazy, but you know, and then they discover this out. Then later, you know, 20 years later, they say, "Oh, that element does exist," and he was called crazy by everyone. And then he was saying, "There's this place I don't think they called it Area 51, but he's like, there's this place where they're testing all this stuff," and people said he was crazy for that. And then in the 90s, they say, "Yeah, Area 51 exists," and that's what he was talking about. So he's famous not just from a podcast and a recent documentary. He's like one of the first people to blow the lid on Area 51.
Well, let me ask you a question. It's somewhat related. Like I believe that the government is doing things I don't know about, and that's okay with me. Is that okay with you that that the government might be doing something and they're deliberately keeping it a secret? Or do you feel like because, you know, we pay for the government that we should be in the know about everything? It seems like people get upset that stuff is working behind the scenes that they didn't know about. They want transparency. Is it okay for the government to be you know, having something behind the scenes that we don't know about?
I'm not sure I have a very good opinion on that, because I just can't get past the government shouldn't exist. So, Kyle, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, and when you say like the state shouldn't exist because government,
yeah, the state. Thank you.
Interact with each other. It's the idea that one entity has a monopoly of the use of force in a given territory. But so aside from that, if there was like, it's smart for them to do that. If they are doing, whether it's military, which lots of times what I think these things are related to, it's smart to do it that way. Like, you don't want these people, you know, you don't want our enemies to know that. And so as much as it could bother me, but I don't let those things bother me because that's not the point of life. But I just assume that they're doing that all the time as well. And we find out about it. You know, they're spying on us immensely with the Patriot Act you know what I mean? Like phone records, everything. They said that, you know, it was to tap into terrorists' phones, and they just tap into all of our phones. And so they're always doing something. And generally these things that they use start to be used against their own people for nefarious reasons.
I like the phrase, I usually use the phrase, any power you give the government can and will be used against you. So people who go to the voting polls and they're saying, you know, it helps their agenda to give the government some weird, you know, power grab, and they want to make that happen, then, you know, they could use that same implication just in a different way, and it be against you now. And they're usually against it when it's against them. But they, you know, they justify the same violation of rights against someone else whenever it was benefiting them, what their opinion was or something. Does that make sense?
Well, I always wonder if there's the uncertainty aspect of releasing such a video right now. And I think the video has actually been released a while ago, but right now they're going, yep, this is a video of us not being able to identify an object. And we're in a time of uncertainty with COVID-19, right? We don't know what's going to happen. And then it was further compounded by having the whole world go into an economic shutdown almost. And all of a sudden this thing gets released. It seems like almost intentional to like try and scare people even more.
Yeah, no, that seems a little bit like that.
Not at all. Look, there's these things that are flying around. We don't know where they're from. They might be coming to get you.
Okay, I have another question when we're ready.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, you know, I like talking about theology and stuff. So this is the question that I wrote down that I was thinking about. If aliens existed, would it change your theology?
Well, I was thinking that was one of the questions I wanted to bring up. Was that I mean, I guess could I rephrase it a little bit?
Sure.
Are aliens, is the existence of aliens completely contradictory to Christianity? I think that's a more like interesting way to phrase that because, Jeremy Corbell thinks it is. Lots of people think that it is, that it would just completely ruin religion. And they say that's one of the reasons that the government doesn't release it is because we need people to be religious, moral. I don't really believe that. But yeah, is it completely contradictory to believe in aliens?
And then, so I would be fine saying, hey, there's a species somewhere out in the universe that is an organism that lives. Then there's a difference between saying, is it this alien being something that's conscious, has a conscience, like is aware, is self-aware, right? So anything up to an animal level, like a dolphin, who are supposedly the smartest of all animals, right? And there's humans.
So something that is an animal and has flying spaceships that we can't even do ourselves? That doesn't seem likely.
Wasn't the question?
Yeah, the most likely alien is like a bacteria or something like that, right? I mean, something microscopic that's not from Earth.
But what if, so I'm just saying, if there are aliens, I don't think they can just be a really smart monkey. I think we're closer to a really smart monkey if there are aliens, because they're obviously way more farther, technological than us. They can bend gravity to move their move spaceships.
Well, here's sorry, I interrupted you.
What was that?
Right past what you and I were saying. You are jumping right to, if there's aliens, they must be able to fly spaceships and bend gravity and come be UFOs in our system. And I'm saying, I don't know if that's the truth. I don't know if the UFOs that people have spotted are actual conscious beings that are aliens that can think and reason. I'm saying that up really in like a dog or a dolphin, I'm willing to say that might be out there in the universe. But I'm not willing necessarily to say that there's something that can reason and think and actually has some sort of moral compass about it.
Okay, I think I understand better. You're connecting the two, that you're not connecting UFOs and aliens when I ask you about aliens.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
The line I'm thinking that I'm at scripturally is that man, or humankind, was created in the image of God, and so. What would that say if there is a superior race of life out there?
Oh, that there isn't only one God?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that would that conflict with what with our theology?
Oh, well, I guess I was saying it might, because if we're in the image of God and there's another thing like us that seems to be set apart, different than animals, then that would, either they're also in the image of God or they're in the image of something else. That's what that would imply if they existed. If we.
So what would your some people, I think, would argue that, well, look, there's angels and there's demons, and they're not born of this earth. They were created outside of the earth. Are they aliens? Is that what people see? Is there some sort of is that what they see when there's a UFO? Is that what could be defined as an alien? Right? It's alien to this Earth.
Yeah, possibly.
And if that's the case, then I 100%. If that's how we're defining it, which is not something that originated on this Earth, which angels and demons did not originate on this Earth, as far as I understand. This is well beyond. This is me just pontificating. I have no idea about this, but it just makes me. When you think about it, you're like, yeah, those could very well be aliens, because when they come here, they're not of here. They didn't originate here. And if you think about it in terms of like countries and immigrating, right? You go from one country to another, and you go to the new one, and you're an alien.
So, do we need to rephrase the question and with a definition of alien that we agree on? Does that make sense?
Sure.
I think I'm just saying that if that's the case, that's what I'm saying. I'm definitely saying that I can believe in God and in the God of the Bible and still believe in aliens. I think that's totally possible.
Well, by your definition, yes.
Yeah.
But you can also, this is what's interesting is that, it doesn't, you want to use a different word than alien, you say life outside of Earth, and then they find some, like you just said, bacteria or maybe a plant, and they're like, oh, life outside Earth, and they're like, people are like, that's not a gray, big, balloon-headed thing, so I don't care about it. No one gets excited over that.
No, well, you're right. I mean, it's not like aliens or something like that, like in the movies that we see. But I'm just saying, I think that kind of stuff is really cool when we discover things outside of our planet, if they were to discover certain things like that, or if they were to discover some sort of animal, or like, I think that would be interesting, and that would not ruin my idea of who God is at all. It would be interesting if an alien shows up that's like, hello, how are you? We've been watching you for a millennia. And you're like, oh, I would be like, what in the world?
So how about this? The same question, but whenever we say alien, we're talking about gray beings that are short and skinny and possibly slimy. I don't know. And they beam you up in the middle of the night, and then they go probe you with they're doing their thing and investigate you, and you wake up and you're like, wow, I feel like I had knee surgery, because that's some of the testimony, and I have this scar and I didn't have it before. I have this thing under my skin, that type of alien. If that type of alien exists, if we had proven abductions from those types of aliens, would it affect the Christian worldview?
Well, you don't even have to say proven. Why do you have to say proven abductions? You're just saying, like, if a gray alien is in front of me and he's like speaking to me and he's not probing me, but he's just like, hey, I'm from Voltar.
I guess that's enough. I just wanted to be more specific to the type of alien, that he doesn't really just want to say hi. He wants to dissect you like a frog.
Well, it wouldn't change my theology or thinking on Christianity, but I can see how for apologetics that would be another problem, or another issue they would have to deal with, like the dinosaurs, for example. There's just not a lot in the Bible about the dinosaurs, and but it's something that we have to answer for, and so I think it'd be something similar along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about I don't think it would just be like, okay, this is crazy, but the Bible doesn't specifically say creation only exists on Earth, and so you can definitely say that there's there. And okay, so humans are the crowning achievement, and so that would be, but angels clearly have more power than us in certain ways. Right. So just because somebody has been given more power by God doesn't make them God's crowning achievement. And he just uses them in a different way. But I don't know if people might start looking at the Bible in different ways if there was something like that happened, right? That you go, okay, this is what that means. And they go, oh, okay. Now we know that this prophecy was related to aliens from another planet that are smart and intelligent and have the ability to reason. Now, the other question is, would they have a moral compass? Would they think that it was right or wrong to come and, probe and chop me up? Like, Derek, so it's like you really want me to be chopped up by this alien.
Well, there's other conspiracy theories out there that would say they might have a moral compass, because we didn't really have alien sightings until we started messing around with nuclear bombs.
Really?
Yeah. So before, pretty much before Roswell, there wasn't much alien activity being reported anywhere, and especially not in the same way. So the way Joe Rogan puts it, he'd be like, he always says that, now to be clear, I don't watch his show or listen to his podcast all the time. I see an interesting person, I go listen to his podcast. Some of it is a lot of it's a little too vulgar for me. And, but so he has Bob Lazar on. I'm going to go listen to Bob Lazar. He has Tim Pool on, like recently. I like Tim Pool. He's really interesting. So I go listen to that interview, and but he always says it's like where this super advanced alien creature realizes that these really smart monkeys over here got a hold of some nukes and they're launching them off at each other, and that seems to be the event that set forth alien technology or alien experiences of some source, and UFOs and abduction stories even. And it started with Roswell, pretty much.
All right. So are there any animals that have a sense of morality, right?
No. I was just saying that he's just using that as like a stupid metaphor that we look like dumb monkeys. He's not actually saying we're smart monkeys or whatever.
But because we have the ability to reason and morality is what sets us apart from all the other animals. So there would be, if there's some guy who's looking at it, or some alien that's looking at us like a dumb monkey, they must be more fascinated by our ability to reason and have morality and then create and destroy things.
Who knows? They're way smarter than us. They're fascinated by way different things than we are. They're way smarter than us, right?
I don't know. Like there are obviously millions of people that study all sorts of different things. I mean, there's people that just study rocks, and rocks are not alive. They just are like, oh, look at this rock. This is how we think it was created. This is where this rock comes from. Rocks. And they're not even alive.
In the Bible, I mean, we believe in things we can't see already. Like you mentioned, angelic messengers and cherubim, and we believe in angelic beings or heavenly beings because the Bible says it. Yet we've never, I'd say probably a great majority have never seen it. What do you say about people who say they've seen angels or seen spiritual beings? Would that be kind of along the same lines?
Well, yeah. What if you saw a burning bush that didn't actually like wither and burn up, right? Now, the unique thing was that God spoke out of the burning bush, but there's got to be there's other things, not just in the Bible, where God has presented himself to people and they have a reaction from it. And I think sometimes God presents himself in certain ways and people are drawn to him, and other times they're repelled.
So this is talking about the spiritual aspect of what people interpret as aliens and angels and things like that. I think that I have my own opinion from a heavily influenced by another documentary I watched on Netflix.
Thanks, coronavirus.
Netflix is really killing it lately with the educational documentaries.
We're calling it educational?
Yeah, and the testimonial documentaries.
There you go.
That.
You watch the History Channel too?
Man, the History Channel. What happened? What happened to the History Channel?
Oh my goodness! It used to be all World War II, Hitler, and that was that for a long time. But when I was on vacation and I had cable, because I don't have cable anymore, but I was on vacation at the hotel. We had cable, and it was just like alien show after alien show after alien show, and I was watching it with kids, and they're just like, "What?" And they're looking at me like, and I was just like,
Once Pawn Stars hit the History Channel, it was just done.
I like the Curse of Oak Island.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay, so
sorry to interrupt you.
I watched a documentary on Netflix that kind of helps me personally. I think that people are not lying when they say they see UFOs and had weird abduction experiences. I don't think they're lying. I think that they experienced something and interpreted it a certain way. Just like Kyle was saying earlier, a farmer in the 1800s who doesn't know what a solar eclipse is going to get freaked out and think that the God is punishing him because he didn't, give enough to charity. And
yeah, how taking my son away? I need the sun.
Yeah. So, in that same way, I think those things do still happen. And this is my best explanation, and it's speculation. Let me be clear. This is not based on anything. Everything that I'm going to say is completely anecdotal. So the documentary is, I think it's called The Nightmare, and it's about sleep paralysis. Do you all know what sleep paralysis is? Yes? No?
I think so.
So,
no.
I think I've gotten that a couple times.
To a lot of people, it's just I wake up in the middle of the night, or I think I wake up, and I can't move. It's like my body's still asleep, but my brain's not. Does that make sense, Kyle?
Yeah.
That's happened to me a couple of times.
Oh, it has. It's just a real thing. Sleep paralysis is a real medical condition.
Well, I'm very glad that the aliens didn't get you, DJ.
Well,
who knows?
Know it. Maybe you don't know it.
Yeah. People claim to have out-of-body experiences and are tortured in a lot of cases by these weird beings in states of sleep paralysis. And so what's interesting to kind of further this case a little bit, there's a lot of horror movies that are based off of this, and the writers have like confirmed that they had sleep paralysis, and it inspired their writings and inspired the movies. Can you just think of one off your head that would be like that?
It's pretty scary. It feels pretty scary.
What movie do you think that would be exactly that experience? It's a horror movie that's super famous.
Oh,
Misery.
With Sandra Bullock. That guy just laid there the whole time.
Which movie?
Well, I'm just kidding. While it was a romantic comedy while you were sleeping.
So The Nightmare on Elm Street.
I never saw that.
You never seen any of them?
I saw one of them where a scene where she turns into an ant or something, and that's about it. I'm not a horror movie guy.
Well, I haven't seen them all either, but I know the premise of the movies.
Well, I thought that you were.
But people go
to dreams though. They enter the dreams, but they don't always know that they're dreaming.
Yeah. So that's all.
Analysis, you're like.
Yeah. So they go to sleep, and in the
sleep paralysis, though, do you know that you're asleep?
Well, no. Okay, I can explain what's happened to me.
Okay.
Because it's happened a couple times, and sometimes I think I can it feels like I caused it to happen. And so I'm sleeping, and then I feel like I woke up, and like I'm aware of kind of like where I'm at, but I can't move, but I'm still dreaming. But it feels like it's I've really woken up. And so I'm the feeling I get, it's a little bit of fear and anxiousness because I cannot move, I cannot get up. And so I'm trying to tell myself, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, because I know I'm in a dream state, but I can't wake up. And that's the scary part, is that you can't wake up.
Okay, so here was, I don't know, I was a kid, and my neighbor, and she was like 17, 18, or 19. I would say, I have no idea, because I was probably 10 or 11. And so just ages seems, and she was babysitting us.
Yeah.
And so she's telling me about astral projection, I think is what it's called, where like you go to sleep, you purposefully take your spirit or something out of your body, and you travel around the world. Yeah. And I was like, that seems satanic. And she's like, oh, no, I do it to pray for my family. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. And then I don't know, the conversation was like, if you wake up while you're astral, then it was just like, you can no longer, like your soul can't get back into its body. And then you're like roaming around.
What year is this?
That was crazy.
What year was this, Kyle?
I don't know. Like
sounds like soul sucking to me, or grave sucking to me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so there's astral projection, and that was what it was. But then I was like, well, what happens if like you wake up but your soul's not back? Like, are you a vegetable and all that stuff? I mean, I must have been 10 or 11 or maybe even 12. But
okay, so let me.
We were being babysat. It was nighttime. My mom had gone, was doing something. Maybe my mom had stepped out on a little weekend vacation or something.
Okay, so let me draw a few connections for you, Kyle.
Okay.
And this will make more sense.
Okay.
I'm going to go through it to the end of what it really, the point is. So people go into sleep paralysis. And yes, some people claim to experience some type of what you're calling astral projection. Like they can go around into the ether or different things like that. And some like different, I can't come up with the word. Nightmare on Elm Street is one of the main movies that first started this. And, people fall asleep and they're attacked by something with knives. And it's terrifying. And they don't want to go to sleep because they're afraid it's going to happen. They think
Are you thinking of multi-universe?
Yes, multi-universe. Thank you. They think they're.
Is that a movie, or are you just thinking of like with the concept?
The concept.
Gotcha.
People claim they're going to some different, dimension. Yeah, that's the word. And some multiverse or dimension there.
Not a multiverse. I think there's a difference between a multiverse and a dimension.
Hey, I'm on a roll. Don't stop.
Okay.
And then, so they claim to go into some different dimension, and some people don't have super negative experiences, and some people are just absolutely tortured by these demonic things that also strikingly resemble aliens. And it always, let me connect with the what was it again?
Projection.
Okay, astral projection. That is more specifically seen in the Insidious movies, which when I still watched horror movies, I was in college when this came out, and I loved those movies. They're just kind of classic to me. They're not kind of, I don't know, they're not like jump out scare you, I guess. And I liked those movies when I was in college, but I don't watch those anymore.
Did you guys see Event Horizon?
I didn't see that.
I think I did.
Well, that's a Sam Neill. That's a
Dag nabbit, Kyle. I'm on a roll. You gotta let me finish.
I'll follow the trail.
About movies. That movie, the little kid in that movie is like drawing pictures, and he is astral projecting, and he can't make it back to his body, and he is in a vegetable state. He's in a coma, and
wow.
So it's what you were saying, but you've never seen the movie, right?
I never saw the movie. No, that's what I'm saying. Like I remember talking about that with her.
It's like The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi at the end when Luke Skywalker projects himself to Kylo Ren.
Oh.
But we're not there yet. So.
We're not. I thought you said Return of the Jedi, so I was like, huh.
Okay, so moving on. So what I think there are lots of connections between abduction testimonies and sleep paralysis testimonies. And I think people are telling the truth when they say they experience these things. Or to an extent, I guess. I think there are weird. Like when your neighbor says that she's praying for her family or something, that's weird. I don't know what that is. But the things that the common denominator is like they're always alone, and it happens in the middle of the night and while they were sleeping, and you're not in the right state of mind when you're sleeping and things like that. I do weird things. I sleepwalk and I do weird things all the time and talk and say weird things all the time. And so I kind of understand that. I even have a rule when I wake up in the morning that I don't trust my own thoughts until I have like at least a glass of water or something to wake me up, or I'm out of the shower, because I will not logically think straight. But they experience both of these things, say that these beings come to them and torture them or abduct them in some way, and they'll just like standing at the bed, and it'll be like a dark figure that's tall and skinny, sounds like an alien. And I think that both of these cases are demonic. I think that is something supernatural but demonic, and I don't think it's aliens, and I'm not sure what I don't think it's just dreams. I don't think it's just dreams. I think something weird is going on there, and they need to go get checked out.
Well, I definitely think that it can be just dreams, but I also think that people can still be demon possessed, but I don't exactly know what that looks like these days anymore. Like I've just read through all of the Gospels in the last 2 months, and it's just because Jesus is just like demon, 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 100 demons, and it seems like that is really what causes a lot of people to be particularly like distressed. Right. And it doesn't always have to be like the person who's homeless who's shouting crazy things on the street. I think that it can be a normal person who they get thrown into fits at times.
We should have a whole nother podcast about this topic, because I have some stories.
Yeah, you might have more stories than that. I don't know enough about it. But yeah, let's demon possession.
Well, essentially, I think you can explain away a lot of actual alien, and by defining alien, I'm using the crazy one that wants to dissect Kyle, and I think you can explain away those by some type of demonic thing. I don't want to say possession. I think oppression might be a better way to describe it, but and it could be a dream. It very well could be, but I would also want to confirm their like medical edition of sleep paralysis too before I jump to any other conclusions. Because if they don't have sleep paralysis, this could all just be nightmares, actual nightmares.
Okay, and then podcast when we talk about that, which I know nothing about, so I should probably just let you guys talk about it and I'll listen to it. But is can you be a Christian and also be demon possessed?
Well, no. Well, I can answer that.
I don't think so.
No, you can't. So the way you cannot be possessed by a demon to be a Christian, because you're already possessed if you're a Christian. You're possessed by the Holy Spirit. So if you're an empty void and don't have the Holy Spirit, you're just a vessel waiting to be possessed by something else, probably.
That is the common response. But anyway, let's just I have a lot more questions about that. We have other things to get to on this.
Okay. We have been talking about aliens for a while. I'll also give you that. We might be time to move on to our second topic, but I just want to. Are there any other comments about aliens we want to get at in this weird state? With the government releasing or confirming footage and things like that.
Yeah. Where I stand is, until the little green man is seen, I'm not really worried about it, or I don't pay much attention to it. I'll look at it when it happens, because I mean it's something that may never happen, and and so that's kind of where I stand. It's an interesting topic, and I guess it's an interesting topic. It was fun to discuss.
I also think it's one of those things where when people are really super duper interested in it, they see it in everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm super duper interested in a topic, then I'm like, well, I see it in everything anyway. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been, this is what I see about that.
So yeah, the government's stealing from you and stuff, and
yeah, exactly.
Well, my thing is that I think it's really fascinating, but I don't actually still believe in aliens at all, and I'm skeptical of most UFOs, but I love researching it still. I don't know what it is about it. I made a point to go to Roswell on a road trip last summer. And we went and toured the whole thing. My daughter screamed the entire time. It wasn't that fun. And don't take a 1-year-old to Roswell. There's nothing for them to do.
Shocking.
I went through there one time. There wasn't much there.
There's not much there. But I find it fascinating. And I want to go on another road trip to all these different alien hotspots and like Marfa lights and things. Because my deal is like, I've never experienced anything. And until I experience something, I'm not going to believe it. I just don't think that personal testimony of other people is enough for me in this scenario.
You are such a liar.
Why?
Oh my goodness. That's like, I'm not saying that you didn't have a personal individual experience with Jesus, but one of the basis of belief is the fact that the apostles would write down and say, this is what happened. Jesus died. And then the very people that want to kill him say, oh, and that he resurrected. Sorry, that he resurrected. And the very people, one of the reasons that their testimony is compelling is because it wasn't like a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. It was Peter saying, no, I saw him alive. And they're like, just say that you didn't see him alive and we won't kill you, right? No, I saw him alive. And they're like, we're going to kill you anyway. Like, again, that's one of the common arguments. You wouldn't.
So Kyle, I'm reading a book. I just read a book on that, and I agree with you with that. I'm saying that the most reasonable explanation right now for UFOs is not aliens.
But you said compelling.
So people who say
no, stop it. Listen, you said that compelling testimony cannot come from someone's individual testimony, and I would disagree.
No, I said it's not enough for me right now. That their testimony of UFOs is not enough for me right now.
Related to UFOs, then.
What was that?
Okay, the way you said it emphatically, like you'll never believe anything on the testimony of one person. Like I thought you were going, no. I don't believe in the lights until I see
I didn't hear it that way. I heard it about aliens.
Okay, I'm just talking about aliens and UFOs, and I think there are other reasonable explanations.
Kyle, attack your salvation.
I know, right?
That's what I really thought. I was like, wait a second. You first believe individual testimony. And I thought you were comparing that to the Marfa lights where, Phil was telling me about that once. And the Northern Lights I've never seen, but I believe that those exist. And so.
They're real.
You can see the Northern Lights in Maine.
What?
You can see the Northern Lights in Maine.
Here?
In America, in Maine.
Oh, in Maine, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got to go up north, though.
Yeah.
So I've been to Maine, but not like when there was Northern Lights.
When I was in Canada, I saw them. It's pretty impressive.
I'd love to see those.
We'll have another episode where we talk about reasonable doubt and possible scenarios and apologetics, so I can school Kyle. And but for now, we're moving on to Star Wars, and it's very related because it's got a bunch of aliens in there, and it's kind of random throwing other things. But Kyle, me and DJ already had a very thorough discussion about Star Wars, and Kyle did not like what he heard and did not agree with what he heard and thought I was very misguided in some of my opinions.
Well, the cool thing is that there's been some new developments in the Star Wars universe in the last couple of months. And so it'd be interesting to kind of see where Kyle lands on this.
So, well, let me state what I think Kyle had an issue with. I have the premise that, or I believe in the premise. Is that even a sentence? Okay, I believe in the premise that the Empire, the Galactic Empire, or the New Order, what do you want to call it, is not as bad as you think. I think it is baked in the cake that they're super duper evil. And like Kyle disagrees with me. And remember, when we're talking about this, we are only talking about the 9 movies.
Oh man,
we're not talking about other things. So the perspective of people in the 9 movies. And I think it's very, very clear in the first 6 that the Empire is not as bad as people think. But the last 3, they make a little bit more of an effort to show why they're the villain. But I still think that the Empire is overly villainized. Kyle, what's your issue?
Go.
Yeah, no, they are. Here's the thing: is just because you think that look at that move right there, he lifts himself right up. Just because you think that it might be hypocritical, or that the rebellion might also have certain rules in place that where they commit atrocities, does not lessen the evil that the First Order and the Empire impose on others, right?
No, the point is also that I don't lessen their evil. I just also think my point's really not even that the rebellion's bad. It's just that the Empire's not as bad as you say. That's all.
Well, I guess, what are you comparing it to? What is worse than the Empire?
Well, I don't think the first. I guess I'm gonna break a little bit of my own rule. The first 6 are just pretty clear that there's not a real. They don't give you a real reason to hate the Empire. It's just kind of assumed they're bad, and they don't make it clear why they're bad. Does that
so in the episode 1, we realized that in the Outer Limits, where it's not the Empire yet, but it's some sort of democratic formation of government.
Republic
system, but there was slavery outside of that, right? Anakin was a slave, and slavery is evil. Okay, so there is slavery outside of what this initial government that was not apparently all-encompassing was able to tamp out, right? So that's what's good about in the Galactic Republic in the first movie, and then it slowly descends into the Empire, right? It gains, it takes more power, and it never gives it back, right? But people do it. Why? Because they're afraid, and they think there's something out there that's unknown. So they give up this power. The more power they give up, the more abusive that the government becomes. The more abusive the government becomes, the more subservient people are, and the more that they come up with boogeyman to tell you that this or that is evil.
Yes, but I think that the Empire was really just another nation state, you could say, that practiced a lot of the same things that other nations did, or empires would, or that you couldn't even expect.
Well, okay, so we're in the Star Wars universe, but I mean, are we applying biblical morality, or are we just going to do a generic murdering is generally evil? Like how are you defining that? Because again, episodes 1 through 3 show the downfall of the Galactic Republic, and 1,000 years before that, it was, outside of. I know that there's new canon, DJ, and you can get into this, but 1,000 years before that, it was the reign of the Jedi, and presumably it was pretty good. And I'm sure some of them abused their power, but it clearly went this way when,
I guess what was life like for the average Joe under the Empire? That's what I'm more concerned with. I don't think they were that oppressive. Or at least in the first 6 movies, it's not clear they're that oppressive.
Yeah, they definitely, not only did they conscript people by the First Order conscripted people, but they enslaved them. Like, it wasn't even like how countries lots of times now do, where they provide incentives to be a volunteer army. They were conscripted and they were trained from birth to be that.
Right. That was like, I saw like Rise of Skywalker last night because it came out on Disney Plus. And that's a big theme in that Rise of Skywalker, is that Finn and the other lady that's in there were conscripted as birth, and they had a conflict when they were first faced with having to kill someone.
Now,
so that
for us, this might not be an issue. It's clear cut that conscription is bad. I think it's slavery. I don't think it should exist. I think it's immoral. But in America, if you were a draft dodger, you're demonized and you're un-American. And it is not universal that conscription is bad. So,
are you unpatriotic, Kyle?
Yeah, of course. But the other thing is, if you were a draft dodger, maybe during the Vietnam War, then people often looked down on you, or there was at least a portion of the culture that was looking down on you, and it was probably a majority. But people eventually realized, no, actually, this is so bad, and they got rid of it, right? We got rid of conscription. You can't, right now, there's no draft. I'm not saying that the government might not try and reimpose it, and I'm not saying that they don't make us as males. When I was 18, I actually had to sign up, right? But they don't draft anybody anymore. They just don't do it.
They just haven't felt like they needed to. But
yeah,
would.
There were statutes and stuff that were passed. I'm not saying that those can be repealed or they couldn't change their minds, but at least people right now in general would say, if you are if somebody is forced to go serve in the military, is that right or wrong? I think you'd find a general answer saying, no, that is wrong.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but we might need to explore that a different time. But I just wanted to point out that conscription to us, it's pretty clear that it's not good. But in a general sense, I don't think that it is.
Well, it's different for the United States. If you're in Britain, you had no choice but to fight for your land, like fight for your country, because you were the ones being physically attacked. We haven't been attacked like straight on, well, with exceptions. But when what movie was I watching? I'm watching some series about Scotland on Netflix, and they're being attacked. Their country in World War II was physically being attacked, and it was their homes, it was their families being bombed, and so in a way they were conscripted.
Yeah, but I guess for the point's sake of the empire, I don't think conscription is a good enough reason to say that they were evil. Now, if you can prove in the movies that there was more slavery happening, possibly that's a good case. I just don't think it was as bad as people think to live under the empire.
Well, again, in the first three movies, it was the overtaking of the government that was supposedly good, the Galactic Empire, by Palpatine, which then descended into more authoritarianism. But because what about the clone army? I mean, cloning someone, and then do you own them? Do they not have their own personal rights to go and do that? I mean, within the Star Wars universe, they at least have some sort of sense of personal rights that you have if you are a being that can reason, is the thing. Obviously, I have a lot of aliens in the movies, but if you're an alien that can reason, you have the right to be free, which is what the rebellion is fighting for.
I guess.
So that's where the new stuff comes in with the clones, because the last season of Clone Wars came out, and it's in between episode 2 and 3. So it's the Clone Wars,
yeah.
And spoiler alert if you haven't seen so spoiler alert. Do y'all guys care?
Nope.
No, but spoiler alert for the Clone Wars and that.
Yeah, the last season, the last 3 or 4 episodes.
It's long, isn't it?
Huh?
About 10 seasons long, right?
it's 7 seasons, but the last 4 episodes line up with episode 3.
Okay.
So like they line up like tie in. So the clones turn against the Jedi.
Yes.
But in the last a couple of episodes, there's this conflict. One of the clones doesn't turn. He gets his chip removed. Order 66.
Yep.
And the chip is removed, and all the other clones on the starship are trying to kill. It's Ahsoka Tano and this Commander Rex, and he's got a conflict because they're out to kill them, and they're going to do nothing. They're willing to die themselves and to kill them, and Ahsoka doesn't want to kill them back. And so because this is what they're programmed to do. This is they're following orders. They're being good soldiers, and so
really following it if they have a chip that's in them that's forcing them to do it.
It's you have to see it because Ahsoka Tano leaves the Jedi Order because the Jedi are getting disillusioned about what they're really called to do. So some of the statements made in the last couple of episodes of this show, of this Clone Wars show, is that the Jedi, ever since Ahsoka was in the Jedi, they've been soldiers, and that's not what they were supposed to be, peacekeepers. And so there's this idea that the Jedi got disillusioned and became soldiers, and then so the conflict with Captain Rex is that now they have to fight against the whole I think it's the 501st of the clones, and these clones have the image of Ahsoka on their helmets because she kind of comes back and uses the clones for a mission. And so to honor her, they put her image, and then all of a sudden they turn on her. And so, but yet still, it's an order that was, it's a chip that was placed in their brains when they were little as clones since birth. And all they've known is war.
So but they're clones, and
yeah, they're clones.
So I don't know, we might need to question their agency a little bit, especially if they can be controlled by a chip, because that would assume that they not actually have a real consciousness if you can be controlled by a chip, because real sentiency and consciousness can't be controlled by a chip.
So the whole series, Clone Wars, was created to humanize the clones, because usually when you see the stormtroopers or the clones, it's kind of like these nobodies all dressed up in masks. So the Clone Wars series actually humanizes them. And so you see people that were actually friends, like with Ahsoka Tano and the Jedi. And that's the whole tragedy, is they all of a sudden turn on all the Jedi and mass kill them.
Okay, so let's see. Okay.
That's evil. How many Jedi were there? They just mass kill people. And I
think there's like only a handful, 5 or 6 that survived. There was I'm assuming hundreds. If you remember episode 2, when they're all fighting in the,
Yeah.
You're at war with them, weren't they?
No.
What's that?
They died.
They're at war with the Jedi.
No.
Are you talking about episode 3?
Remember at the end of episode 3, Anakin becomes Darth Vader?
Yes.
And he takes his unit and he goes and storms the temple.
Okay, other than Anakin killing a bunch of kids, you gotta look past that, and blowing up a few planets who are allegedly populated.
Okay, hold on.
I don't think
stormtroopers murdered all of the Jedi. Presumably, were there hundreds? Were there thousands?
The clones did.
The clones.
Okay, where does stormtroopers come from?
Stormtroopers come after the clones start aging out, and they start conscripting the children. Stormtroopers are normal human beings.
Okay, but were they always conscripted, or was that something that happened after the Empire and when the First Order started ruling things?
The clones were were the stormtroopers when the Empire started.
Yeah, so they age out, but presumably the stormtrooper, there's clone troopers, stormtroopers, and then there's the First Order troopers. What are we calling them?
Kind of the same thing.
Are conscripted and put in slavery. But okay, it is they murdered thousands of Jedi, so they committed a genocide against a certain type of people.
Let's
a religious group.
The Empire's not established yet, so it's not quite there.
Well, they're consolidating power.
They're trying to. So,
how do you consolidate power but murdering?
Okay, but if you watch episode 3, the Jedi try to overthrow the government.
Okay, we're talking about you're right, and the rebels do too. But we're talking about the average Joe. That's who we're talking about. Think about your average Joe living under the Empire. Was his life oppressive? Do you think it was? I don't think it was that oppressive. I mean, you see them blockading planets, and they're like, wow, we can't trade between planets. Is that necessary? How do they even have life there before?
You need to go rewatch those movies because it wasn't the Empire that blockaded planets. Okay?
It was the Separatists. Yeah.
And so it was the Separatists that actually turned into the rebels.
What?
You got to think. Well, and then it was the Separatists, the Galactic Republic. The Galactic Republic eventually turns into the Empire. The Separatists got defeated because that was also being run by Palpatine. But then the rebellion rose up, and they replaced the Separatists.
In Episode 7, they were blockading planets, right?
No, they were blowing them up again. Evil.
They were blockading planets too, though.
No, this reminds me of in A Few Good Men. Okay, are you familiar with A Few Good Men? Okay, it's a great movie, and they're defending a Marine who basically does a prank on another Marine, but the prank accidentally kills him. And they're trying to prove that it was a prank and that there's not an intent to murder. And so they're doing the cross-examination, and they're like, is there any proof whatsoever that there was any abuse done to the victim? And they're like, other than the dead body? Like, they couldn't get it's a very difficult answer, right? So yes, you keep on like going, oh, look over here, and you're like, and let's just assume that Alderaan was a populated planet. I think we have to put that into place, that it was a populated planet. And I don't think that bombing populated areas is right. I think that I think that if a government's going to choose to do that, they're also evil.
So what I was saying was, you said that if a government is bombing, killing innocent people, they should rise up against them. Has our country ever been guilty of that?
Yeah. I think we were bombing some German and Japanese cities, and Vietnamese cities, and Korean cities, and so I think that, yeah, we did that. It was not good.
Well, okay, so
in the middle of wars that we've been in for the past 30 years.
So to help what DJ's saying, it doesn't make a little bit of what my point is that if you do compare it with America, America has done some pretty bad atrocities to other countries around the world. Very oppressive, even comparable to the Empire. I think blowing up a planet and dropping a nuke, if you like put the ratios together from the Star Wars, I think it's the same thing, because we don't have other planets that we could really blow up. But
it is the most powerful weapon that we have.
Yeah, it's the most powerful weapon. So I think it's the same thing. But for the average Joe, which is me in America, I experience a pretty good life, even though I live in an oppressive, evil country. Or government, you could say. You know, the government's oppressive and evil in the same way that the Empire was. I'm saying that the Empire wasn't as bad as you think, especially for the average Joe. And that's all.
Well, okay, you have thrown in the average Joe just because you lose so badly that you needed to throw that in. But if you were to say that America is as good as everyone might believe, then that would be the counter to that, right? You would say that that America is the empire. That's your argument, and I actually tend to agree with that. So you're just trying to downplay the atrocities of the empire in Star Wars, and I'm saying, well, America's committed its own atrocities. It's just the other thing is we can look at other empires around the world that have committed worse atrocities than us in the 20th century, and that we were like competing against. So we were like the least of the evil. I mean, we in general, the government was not trying to murder its own people the way that the Soviet Union did, and that Mao's China did, and then some other authoritarian governments along the way.
But think about all the people that the rebellion or the resistance, equating both the same, how they destroyed 2 Death Stars that had probably thousands and thousands, if not 1 million people on them, and Star Killer Base, which was a planet, I believe.
I would say that if you are on a military installation like the Death Star, that you are not a civilian. And
what if you were raised there?
On the Death Star?
Or conscripted.
Well, again, so that is evil, but I think you have to be, if you're conscripted, you still have to be responsible for your own actions. If there is a war in which you are conscripted to, in which it is immoral, I think that you have the moral requirement to resist.
What about their families that weren't a part of the war, that just were hanging there and living with,
consequence when you're going to,
and their kids and babies?
I know they're evil.
Kyle,
The rebellion blew up probably as many people as the empire did. I'm assuming. I don't know that for a fact.
I would say probably. I would estimate just when you're having the Death Star, you're probably, and you're in battle with it, you're probably not going to be taking your families along with you. Never reflected that there was families aboard, and the ease of travel in which that happens, because you can travel at the speed of light to and fro places very easily. I'm pretty sure that when the sailors went on leave, they just took a starship to home planet.
So my point wasn't even to demonize the rebellion at all, even though you can, obviously. It was really just saying that it wasn't that oppressive under the empire. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as people would think.
Well, the interesting thing is, what was the empire doing that they wanted to rebel? Because at least what we know is that the empire's reaction to their rebellion was evil, right? So let's just assume that they were writing too many parking tickets, and they're like, this is it. I don't want you to write all these parking tickets. I'm going to rebel. Then the empire goes, you're going to rebel? You're not going to pay this parking ticket? All right, Alderaan, we're blowing you up. That's kind of an intense reaction.
I think they didn't like the government.
Well, yeah, but what do you mean don't like the government? What was
they didn't like the emperor because even before the emperor came in power, they were factioning against the chancellor before they became the empire.
We don't know what policies were being implemented by the Galactic Republic and then the Galactic Empire and then the empire itself that people are rebelling against.
You're making my point, Kyle. You talking
like a fool.
The movies don't make clear why the empire is evil. They don't make it clear.
Okay, but that was not at all what you said.
Part of the premise.
Well, you never said it in the last. You spent a whole that one episode.
I started off with that. Okay, we're running out of time. Kyle, do you feel like you spoke your piece on this?
Well, okay, here's the thing is I still would disagree with you. I think to clarify that even with the prequels, they did not clarify why Emperor Palpatine himself was going to be an evil leader, because his plan didn't appear to be to murder everybody. He wanted to live forever, right? And so that's the issue. However, you can still determine the morality of a government based off of its response to people disagreeing with that government. I would say that to a certain extent, America's government and our ability to still have the free speech that we do have, whether you feel like it's limited or not, is better because we're not being imprisoned right now, for the most part, for what we think, which is a unique time because actually some people have been imprisoned for violating, or for violating certain code sections, even though they're complying with the First Amendment right now.
Okay. All right, Kyle. We will not address this issue until more revelations of Star Wars come out in the future, and we might open it up a little more to the to more canon than the first than the movies. If we want to discuss this again,
you have to watch Clone Wars.
Yeah, we'd all have to watch the Clone Wars and understand. I've watched some of it, but not all of it. I watched
DJ. Also, I saw the Solo movie, and there's a battle going on there. What war was that? Was that the Clone Wars too? Also,
I'm not sure.
Okay,
yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so here, how about this? We're going to end the question again because I am curious now after we've had this discussion. DJ, what is your favorite of the 9 movies? You have to pick of the 9 movies. Which one's your favorite? Of the Skywalker? 3? Okay. That's an interest. No, that's not. No, I understand that. Kyle, go.
Are you saying episode 6?
Episode 3.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
That's your favorite.
Yeah, that's when he becomes Darth Vader.
I think that's a good one.
That's when Order 66 is initiated. That's when. Okay, what I like about it is the reason why Anakin becomes Darth Vader. This is like, for me, it was a really big deal. Yeah. Because he becomes Darth Vader to save Padme, his love, so that because he has dreams that she's going to die. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that by becoming evil, he's the one that ends up killing her and making the dreams come true, where he thought he was going to try to save her. And so that revelation gave him even more hate and power to become Darth Vader.
Yeah, I actually I liked the prequels. I still like them, and I watch them with
me too. Yeah.
Okay, so your favorite though?
Well, I like it when I meet somebody who likes the prequels because I just like the story arc of how they tell everything.
I like episode 3. I think it's a good one. Episode 3.
So that was the thing is people so disliked, or years later they so disliked because it was very popular in 1999 when episode 1 came out. But then episode 3 kind of gets associated with those first 2. I like them, but it's actually a lot better of a movie. Like it's better written. It's more well done, and people's intentions and motives, like you were saying there about Darth Vader, like really are put on spotlight. So that's good. No, but Empire Strikes Back. It just
okay.
And it's obviously one of the best reveals of all time, and so you have some really good interactions there, and you really have some like the way that Han goes out to save Luke at the very beginning, and just like again willing to go out and freeze to death himself, not willing to let his buddy be left out there to die. It was great. I liked the whole movie.
Okay. Mine is definitely episode 9. The most recent one, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yes.
What was that?
Recency bias.
My next one will be episode 3 though. I do like episode 3. I think episode 3 holds a little better, like with most people, if you were to actually just watch both. Like,
yeah, the people that have problems are the ones that are like really deep into the Star Wars canon, and I get it, because if the movies are the only thing you're exposed to, they're good movies.
I think episode 3 is a little deeper than episode 9.
Well, tell me why you like episode 9.
Because it's super entertaining. I don't even like action movies, but I thought the concept that they have this weird planet type thing, and then they all can kill, like the first war, what is it? The first
order. First order
army with all of those battleships and stuff, and that was an awesome fight scene. And
that was the last order.
The last order. Okay, yeah. I liked all that. I thought that was really cool. And it was new. So that's one of the things that I have a problem with Star Wars, is that they repeat the same crap over and over again. How many Death Stars have they blown up? So I don't love that. So I thought it was new. But I think episode 3 is super strong. And if before this last one came out, I would have picked episode 3. I thought it was great.
Well, the best parts of the most recent movies is actually the relationship between Rey and Kylo. So it was just super interesting how they interposed that throughout, how they had some sort of connection that was going on there. And then one of the interesting things that is that the Skywalkers, they never really existed. And I don't mean that in the way that you think, but the Skywalkers came to existence through Anakin Skywalker, who was born of a virgin. And then Anakin had 2 babies, and then Luke never had any children as far as we know. And so let's assume that that's canon. And then Leia dies or becomes a Force ghost. And she has Kylo Ren, who then sacrifices himself, and he's dead. So it's like, if you think of the prophecy going from beginning to end, right, that there's going to be some great, that the Skywalkers were basically used to balance out the Force, that's actually is what happened throughout the whole story. So I thought that was a good job of how they tied it into all of the movies.
Yeah. A lot of people disagree with you on that, Kyle. But we don't have time.
Okay, fine. We don't
have time to talk about that, Kyle. But so that has been it today for our episode of Baked in the Cake. We really, really got into Star Wars there, more than I thought we were going to. But do us a favor and like or thumbs down, I don't care, subscribe and comment and give us a review. If you give us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, that'd be fantastic. It benefits us a lot. And anything else, DJ?
No. Thank you for listening.
I'm not going to give Kyle a chance to talk, because then we'll keep going. All right. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time and see what else is baking the cake. Goodbye.